Hi, everyone, and welcome to Power and Freedom. I'm Alana Hunt. Thank you for joining me today. Come on in, take a seat. We're going to have a bit of a chat today. We had the most amazing conversation on Tuesday about self-acceptance and how it's very difficult for us to go from a place where we perhaps aren't very comfortable in our own skin, or we feel that we're not good enough, or that people don't love us, or whatever, to a place where actually we have self-acceptance and we can move into self-love. So that was the conversation that we had on Tuesday, and we had a heap of people in, and it was just amazing. We had the most amazing conversation. So today I wanted to carry on with this sort of theme that we have for the week, which it seems to be, which is about accepting others. And what I've just popped in the description box up here is the greatest gift you can ever give someone is to accept them exactly as they are. But you're also giving yourself a gift at the same time. So today I want to talk about why it is that when you accept others and you give them the great gift of acceptance, that actually you are giving yourself a gift as well. So I was chatting to Stephen Webb this morning. I don't know if you know Stephen Webb. He's the Inner Peace Guide, or your Inner Peace Guide. And we were talking about some other things. And I was chatting about the live that I did on Tuesday and the conversation we had. And it kind of sparked something in me, because I said on the live that, you know, the biggest gift that we can give anybody is the gift of acceptance. I mean, it's also the biggest gift we can give ourselves, right? But when we accept other people, we're giving ourselves a gift at the same time. So I wanted to talk about what that looks like. So when you're giving your gift of acceptance to other people, what comes back to you can be surprising. I wanted to just sort of start with thinking about what happens when we feel accepted. And it kind of reminded me of the film Bridget Jones' Diary. Yeah. Have you seen it? It's just such a great, great film. And there's a line in that film that I think resonates with most of us, and particularly those of us who are women. And I mean, Mr. Darcy for a start. I mean, who doesn't love Mr. Darcy, or Colin Firth even? But, you know, he says to Bridget, "I love you just the way you are." And she's like, "Just the way I am? What? Not thinner? Not taller? Not smarter? Not with bigger boobs?" I mean, you know, and that's kind of how the conversation went. It's like, just the way I am? Really? Seriously? Is that even possible? And, you know, you can really see from her reaction when he says that to her, what it means. So it really means so much to be accepted exactly as you are, or loved exactly as you are. But I want to talk about what happens when we do that, or when we feel that. So if you think about in yourself, if somebody accepts you totally and they're really kind to you and they're really accepting, and I have a couple of people in my life like this, it's quite a rare thing. Let's be honest, it's quite a rare thing. And it doesn't matter how much personal development work we've done, there are still areas of our lives where we are unaccepting of others. And I know that that's true for me. And you know, it was really interesting. As I said at the beginning, I was having a wee chat with Stephen Webb this morning from your Inner Peace Guide. And what sort of came up, I noticed something he'd said in one of his lives the other day, and he was talking about the need to be right, and how it's important, you know, we feel that we need to get our own point across, that we've got a view, or that we feel that the view that somebody's talking about, or that the opinion that they have, is quite extreme. And for me, this is how it showed up for me. And I'll be really honest with you here, because, you know, we don't always like to say the things we don't like so much about ourselves, but every time we get a realization, it's so empowering, and it improves our lives so much. So although it was sort of one of those ones I thought, oh, really? That's what I'm doing? I thought I was doing something else, but actually this is what I was doing. So I'll tell you how it went. So Stephen was talking about, I can't actually remember exactly what he was talking about, but it was about being right. And what struck me was that in my life, I like to present another point of view. I find that there are people that I know who, from my perspective, have quite extreme views, or what I might call black and white thinking, you know, where they're very in this direction, and this is what they think is right, and that's how it is. And I have a different view, and it's not that I need them to agree with my opinion, but somewhere in my brain I was telling myself that actually offering the other side of the equation might help them see that there's more than just one side. So that's the story I told myself here, right? You know, and it's a funny one because it's kind of like this need to sort of control our environment in some way. And by, I don't know, just by getting this validation that our opinion is right, or being able to say it in some way, we feel like we're controlling. And although we don't look at it that way, there is a level of control that's going on in that. And so what I was doing, and I would have been told that I was playing devil's advocate, which is kind of, you know, whatever the opinion is, you always got to offer the other one, you know. And it wasn't, and my intention was, well, I thought, and I'm still questioning myself here, but I thought my intention was pure, and it was designed to maybe open up the idea to another point of view. But in actual fact, by offering the other side, the impact to the other person wasn't what I intended. It made them feel like their opinion didn't matter. It made them feel like I was trying to be right. It was like, it felt to them like I was trying to put across my point and get them to acknowledge that, yes, I was right. And to be fair, somewhere in there, there's got to be that, you know, if someone's receiving it that way, even though in my mind and in my heart, that wasn't my intention, there's got to be some of that that's coming through, you know. And we've talked about the unconscious brain or the subconscious brain, and how much of what's happening underneath is actually filtering through and what comes out, you know, in our conscious world. And I think we need to stay open-minded to others' inputs. Yes, we do. And this is the rub, yeah? Because it's important to be open-minded. It's important to be able to embrace other people's thoughts, but not everybody wants to hear it. And I think you have to pick the people. So when you're up against somebody, or you're hearing somebody who's appears to be very closed-minded, and they appear to be very dogmatic or bigoted, or whatever word you want to use, in the opinions and the way that they see the world, and then you offer the idea that perhaps that's only from one side, you know. And I talk about this a lot. I've got a blog on my site, which is I can't remember what it's called, but it's about a film. Oh, now everything's falling out of my head. A film called The Vantage Point, with Dennis Quaid. And the film goes through, and it shows different scenarios from different points of view. And it's like everything kind of replays, and it all kind of comes back, and you hear the story again, and you see it from 4 or 5 different perspectives. And so it's all about where you see, what you see depends on where you sit, right? So if I sit here in my comfortable little world and I look at certain situations, I can make judgments about them. But if I was to transplant myself from here to the other side, then my experience would be really, really different. So the idea that we want to expand the possibilities, yeah? So that somebody maybe would open their mind to the possibility of something else. We've got to choose the people we do that with. And there was an occasion where I'm doing this in my life, and actually I'm doing it with the wrong person, because for them, it feels like criticism. For them, it feels like their opinion doesn't matter. It feels invalidating. Not at all my intention. That's not who I want to show up in the world as. But it's really important to be able to step away and recognize that actually, whilst I had a certain intention, how that was received was really different. And instead of that person feeling accepted by me, they felt judged. So I think it's really important. And so what it highlighted for me when I was listening to Stephen, and when I was talking to him today, was this idea of the need to be right. And sometimes what comes across as the need to be right isn't necessarily the way that you're intending it, but it's so important to be connected to how what we're doing is being received by the other person. Yeah. And today we're talking about accepting others, which is kind of where I was going with this story. It's really about what I was doing was I was not showing acceptance. And sometimes people, when they have strong opinions and they voice those opinions, they can be hard to hear. Sometimes we don't want to hear them, and in a way to try and diffuse the power of something that doesn't resonate with us and actually makes us feel uncomfortable, we want to present the other point of view. In this case, it's not the right thing to do, because it's invalidating. when I was talking about today's topic is accepting others and giving them the gift of acceptance, but also the gift that you gain by accepting them fully. So what does that mean? What does that look like? How can giving this gift of acceptance of others help you? How can it give you a gift? So if we go back to the Bridget Jones scenario where, you know, Mr. Darcy, Mr. Mark Darcy in all his gloriousness says to her, I love you just the way you are. And she's like, really? Seriously? Oh, my goodness. You know, how is that even possible? Don't I have to change? Don't I have to be better? Seriously? It's such a concept that's so unfamiliar because we're so used to being judged and we don't even accept ourselves fully a lot of the time. So how can anybody else? So that when we do actually receive that absolute acceptance from somebody else, what does it do? How does it make you feel when somebody accepts you? When you know that somebody actually just likes you for you and that they're happy with you, yeah. And you know what? We were talking about self-acceptance the other day, and sometimes it's hard to recognize somebody is actually accepting you exactly as you are because you're struggling with it yourself, so you don't always see it in others. But when you do see it and you do experience it, what is it like? It's like somebody has just opened you up, yeah? Where you're a little bit maybe, oh, we're always a little bit unsure. There's the, you know, no matter how secure you are in yourself, you go into a new environment, there's always a little voice in your head that sort of says, well, you know, do they like me? Are they going to like me? You know, I have that problem anyway. Not everybody does. Some people are really confident, and I'm confident, but I do struggle sometimes. I still hear that little old voice in the back of my head that says, nobody's kind of coming over to talk to you. Are you okay? Do they like you? Do they, you know, what are they thinking? You know? And so we just, you know, that voice, I just go, okay, yeah, okay, that's old stuff. Doesn't matter, you know, and we just get on with it. So let's just turn that around for a minute. So if that's how we feel when somebody accepts us, how does somebody feel when we accept them? The same, right? Yeah. So where maybe they were a bit wary and a bit unsure, or maybe they were holding themselves back in some part of their life, or they were putting walls up, or they were unsure of you, or they were waiting to be judged, or maybe they'd been judged before by you or felt judged before by you. Suddenly they start to feel that you're accepting them. You're not playing devil's advocate like I was and offering the other point of view. You're not saying, oh, really? Are you really going to wear that? We're good at that one as women, aren't we? Especially as the guy in our lives. We're like, you know, you're really going to wear that? You're going to go out wearing that? But all those little things feel like criticism. They feel like judgments to the other person. Cheryl's just saying, she's asking here, what about when there is a time when you feel you want to share something constructive criticism to help them? Yeah, and that's what I thought I was doing. Not everybody can handle constructive criticism. It just feels like criticism. There's nothing constructive about it. It doesn't matter how you say it, how you phrase it, what your intention is, what the purity of your heart is. There are people who cannot hear it. And this is where we have to become wise. We have to really, really step into our highest self, our kindest, most accepting, most loving self in our interactions with people. Because what we see as constructive criticism isn't always received that way. Or something that isn't even designed to be criticism, something that's designed just to help them grow. They don't want to grow. Or they might want to grow, but they don't want to grow by hearing what you have to say about it. So, and isn't this the most frustrating thing? When you say something and somebody completely blanks you, doesn't want to hear it, maybe gets offended, and then they hear it from someone else and they're like, oh, this was mind-blowing. And you're just like, duh, didn't I just say that last week? So sometimes it's not the thing that's being said, it's who's saying it. Or maybe when you said it and they didn't receive it well, it planted a seed. So when they heard it again, maybe 60 times, it suddenly turned a light bulb in their head. it's a really, really hard one. So yeah, Cheryl, just let it be. You know, sometimes the things that we are saying, sometimes we deliver information that we think is helpful, that will help them in some way, open them up, or give them another perspective. We think we're doing it from love, and maybe we are, but it doesn't always come out that way. You can wrap something up, and I always say this about the English, quite a fun, well, it's a difference of perspective. In New Zealand, we are reasonably blunt or direct. I like to say direct. It's a much kinder word than blunt. But we tend to just say things, yeah? And now I live in the UK. In the UK, people are very polite. They're very lovely, but they're very polite. And I guess on a small island, you know, you think about the land size of the UK and the land size of New Zealand, they're the same. New Zealand has 4.5 million people. The UK has 64.5 million people. So kind of a bit of a difference. So they've learned to rub along with all these people. And so I always I say that the English kind of, when they go to say something, they wrap it up in a bit of tissue paper and 17 layers more tissue paper and 16 bows. And, you know, they wrap it up in this soft cotton wool, and then they deliver it. And you know, it doesn't matter how kindly you can put something, how much love you can put around something. Sometimes all the other person will hear is the one little bit that makes them feel judged. And you can't control that. You can't be watchful for that all the time. And we're not talking about never saying anything and, you know, walking around on eggshells. That's not what this is about. This is about coming with a level of heart acceptance. It is not our job to change the people around us. And this has been a hard learned lesson for me, yeah, really, really hard, and I'm still learning it. And it's not that I want people to change. I just want them to grow into the huge potential of who they are. That's the story I tell myself anyway. And that is my intention. But sometimes the people closest to us, we're not the people to do that with, you know. We can do that sometimes in a different capacity, but maybe your partner or your kids or your very best friend or your mum or your dad, those are not the people to do that with, because you're too close to it. You've got too much other stuff all kind of entwined. And so, you know, it's better to just show them love, show them acceptance. That is the greatest gift that you can give to them. When you find yourself in a situation where a person isn't changing, the only thing you can do is make a choice. Do I want to be a part of this or not? And that is the most painful thing I can tell you, because there's times where it means that you have to walk away from someone that you love, that you've invested years and time and energy in. But if you can't find acceptance for that person, then do them a favor and walk away, because you're hurting them. They're hurting you maybe, but you decide whether they hurt you. You can allow some of the stuff to just kind of go past you. But when you don't show acceptance, you're hurting the other person. That's hard to hear, but it's the truth. And we don't realize we're doing it. We're doing it out of the goodness of our heart, where, you know, and it's not designed to be hurtful. It's not designed to be judgmental, but it's received that way. And it's just as if you did it deliberately. It's like you pick up a rusty, you know, knife and shove it in their eye. That's what it feels like to them. I'm just going to go back through these comments. What if we are the only ones that can help them see they need to change certain things? Joanna's asking this question. Okay, so what if we are the only ones that can help them see they need to change certain things? If they're not receiving it from you, then you're not the person. You might be the only person around them that has the ability to see things differently, but if they're not receiving it from you, then all you're doing is hurting them. All you're doing is criticizing them. All you're doing is making them feel unworthy, unaccepted, judged. It's a tough one, yeah? Really, really, really tough, because your heart's in the right place. Your intention is to help, to heal, often to offer kindness and love, and to show that there's more there than what the person sees, and a lot more good stuff. And that's what I was doing. You know, this person is sometimes very they see the world as this horrible, horrible place, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not really like that, because this happened or that happened, and just see the irritation. And it makes me sad, because this person's actually got a heart of gold, but often the way they talk and they get into what they're saying and they believe it so absolutely, and it's so true for them, that anything that I might say that offers another point of view, they get angry. I want to feel this way. I want to think this way. You're making me feel like it's not okay for me to think like this. You're making me feel like my opinions don't matter. So what do I do with that? I either choose to accept this person as they are, or I walk away, because it's not going to change. It might change in the future, but it isn't going to change today, and there's nothing I can do to change it. And actually, by trying to present this other point of view, I'm hurting myself as well as that other person, because it's impacting on our relationship in a negative way. And that's where I want to talk about this gift today. You can't force it ever, Mandy. No, absolutely. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the most. It's a sad truth. Yes. The thing is, though, why is that? And this is really the crux of what today is about. Why can the people that we love the most hurt us the most? There's only one reason. Because we open ourselves up to the people we love. Because when we feel loved, at least in some way, we feel accepted. When we feel accepted, what happens? We smile. We want to say yay. And we open ourselves up. We become vulnerable. And so what happens is the people that love us, they're closer to us. We allow them to get closer to us. We let them in. And therefore, when they say something, and please remember this, most people, including me, probably including you, in fact, I'd be fairly certain including you, we don't go out to hurt the people we love. We don't do it deliberately. We say something that triggers something in them, or we have a tone of voice because we had a shitty day and it comes across and it makes them think it's about them. So when we say the people that we love the most have the most power to hurt us, I want you to think about whether they're actually hurting you, or whether it's something in you that's reacting to them. Yes, there are times where people are cruel. But if you've chosen somebody lovely in your life, and you love them and they love you in return, give them the benefit of the doubt. Chances are they didn't mean to hurt you. When relationships break up, different story, But most of the time when somebody is behaving in a way that is hurtful, it's because they feel hurt. They are reacting, they are responding. And I have a blog on my site, powerandfreedom.com. You can go have a look if you like. It's called The Power of the Pause. And I have done a live talk about it. And it's about remembering that when you're in an exchange with somebody, to stop and look at the person in front of you and pause for a moment. Because if they say something that feels hurtful, it's probably because they're hurt. Don't make it worse. Stop for a minute. Is this about me? Do I want to be cruel in return? Do I want to yell at them in return? How do I want to respond to this? Am I going to take this on and make this painful for me? Or am I going to understand that actually something's going on with this person? And are you okay? Are you okay? Turn it around. 99% of the time, it's not about you. It feels like it's about you. Absolutely. 99% of the time, it's not. And it's a hard one to remember, especially when you're feeling hurt. It's hard to put yourself in the other person's shoes, but this is so important. Why? Because it's a gift you can give to them, but because by showing acceptance, that other person opens up to you. And as they open up to you, you get to see more of who they are. You get a greater connection, you get more intimacy, you have more joy, more happiness, more love. Because I don't know about you, but I've found in relationships that You can be going really, really well and you're getting on really well, yeah, for a period of time and everything's lovely. And, you know, my partner will walk past my chair and pat me on the top of the head where he might not on other days, you know. And so everything feels really lovely and you feel close to this person. And all it takes sometimes is one little conversation that's uncomfortable. And what do? We pull away and the other person pulls away. And all of that lovely love and warmth and connection and joy and happiness that you got in that moment of connection and feeling loved just out the window, because for a moment one of you felt judged. Or and look, this stuff's going to happen, yeah. I'm not talking about it's not a honeymoon. There's stuff that happens, like, you know, relationships are difficult, but the more that we can recognize, the more we can offer that acceptance of somebody else, the more they're going to open up, the more we're going to receive the love, the joy, the happiness, the more we're going to be able to see who this person truly is. You know, it all comes from you. We're so busy looking out and going, this person's judging us, or they're being cruel to us, or they're being mean to us. But you know what? Just like the way we respond to them, and a lot of times comes from them, you know, how they treat us, then we choose to respond in a way that maybe isn't the best way because we're triggered or whatever. And it's the same the other way around. I think that we have to be very careful with other people's feelings. And sometimes we don't recognize that we're not being as careful as we could be. Step back, breathe, listen, to respond, not react. Yeah, that's a really important one, Mandy. You know, and I do talk about the difference between a response and a reaction. A reaction is something that's automatic from the past. A response is something you choose. There's power in a response. There's freedom in a response. There's none of those things in a reaction. It's something that's triggered. It's something that you're doing that's old conditioning. It has nothing to do with today. And that's where the power of the pause can help you, because it allows you to count to 10, sing a song, flick a rubber band on your wrist, do whatever you need to do to break the pattern that's in your head. That the minute you feel triggered, or the minute because your brain's matching things that aren't even there. It's matching this situation today to something that happened in the past, and it's creating the same reaction. It's not about today. So when you take a moment, you know, count to 10, whatever, hum a song, close your eyes and breathe. Try not to do it too, obviously, because otherwise people think you're exasperated with them, which you might be. But, you know, the thing is, we're letting off so many signals that are unconscious in our body language when we're interacting with people, that people are going to get offended. They're going to take what we do as something that's hurtful. It's going to happen. But in the conscious things that you do, wherever you can possibly, you know, pay attention to how you're showing up. Have respect for other people's feelings. Think about them. Get to know them a little bit better. Power of the pause, yeah. Let's see. Turn it around. Cheryl's saying, this truly is great. Just breathe, yeah. Empathy is a gift. Empathy, yes. Empathy is more than just being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, and, you know, if they're having a hard time. It's being able to see before you behave, before you show up, before you respond, before you react, to see how that might be received by the other person. It's truly about connecting deeply with them, because we're all different, and what's okay for one person's not okay for another. That's what makes it so hard. Makes it interesting, but it makes it really challenging, yeah? So I wanted to talk about assumptions. And how assumptions, I mean, there's a few old sayings around assumptions, but when you know somebody pretty well, or you think you do, we see people react or respond in a certain way, and we think that's who they are. So we therefore assume they're going to react the same the next time, or that that's actually who they are. It may just be who they were on that day. And so what happens is that we end up projecting our assumptions, what we believe we've seen in somebody else, onto them, like wrapping them up in this thing that we think they are. And when we do that, I've talked about the brain quite a lot, but when we do that, what happens is that our brain puts that person into a box. This is who this person is. This is what they think. This is how they are. This is who they are. This is how they show up in the world. This is how they treat me. This is, I know this person really well, is what we say to ourselves. But here's where accepting that person absolutely and completely makes a massive difference for you. If you can sweep away the assumptions and the things you think you know about the person, because you're bringing that to every interaction, as you go forward, those things you know about this person. And have you ever caught yourself saying, I know you? I've heard myself saying it. And I remember when my ex-husband used to say to me, I know you better than you know yourself. I used to want to get up and smack him right in the middle of his face. I was just like, how can you know me better than I know myself? I might not know myself very well, but if I don't know myself, there's no damn way that you know me. You might see the way I'm showing up in the world and think you know me. You might be judging me based on my behavior and think that's who I am. But you don't know me. You don't know what goes on in my head. You don't know who I truly am in my heart. You don't know who I am, where I'm coming from. You don't know my experiences. Not that you need to know my experiences, but you don't know me. And so when you catch yourself thinking you know this other person, or saying, I know you, and we do it in a nice way to try and show that there's a connection, that we know this person, that we see them. And it's important that we do that. We do need to see people, but we need to see the truth of who they are below the behavior they're showing us. True acceptance of somebody else allows them to show you more of who they are. It builds trust. It gives people a safe place. They can be vulnerable. They can reveal more of who they are. And when you get to see more of who somebody is, you know what happens? We all operate in the world with protection. There's all of us have things that we do that keep ourselves from being hurt or from having people see certain other parts of ourselves. You know, there's a way of being in the world that allows us to all kind of just get along. Yeah. You don't want to put all your, what they say, the dirty laundry. You don't want to put everything about yourself out there on the plate for everybody to see. One, nobody really cares and probably doesn't want to know. And two, you really are putting yourself in a really vulnerable position where someone can just take their big foot and just right on the top, and that hurts. It impacts us. So we all operate from some point of, this is who I'm going to show you I am. And you can be open, but still keep parts of yourself to yourself. And that's appropriate in so many occasions, so many situations. But when you're in a real relationship, whether it's with a romantic partner or whether it's in a friendship or parents or children or any of those sort of closer relationships, then keeping those protection things, showing up in a way that keeps you safe, the way you might with somebody you don't know as well, or know as fully, doesn't allow for intimacy. It doesn't allow for vulnerability. It doesn't allow for true love, connection, joy, happiness, love. So if we say that if somebody accepts us, it opens us up and we become joyful and we want to yell, yay, and it makes us smile. And it does that for somebody else when we accept them. We want more of that. We want to allow them to open up. We want them to feel safe so they can open up, so they can show us more of their amazingness. The truth of who they are behind the walls that they're putting up, behind the masks that they wear, behind the protection that they're walking around with because perhaps they've been hurt severely in their life or hurt repeatedly. And, you know, haven't we all? And we're all at different levels in how we manage that and how we handle that and who we want to be out there in the world. We mask our inner self, says Mandy. Yeah, we do. Barriers and boundaries. And it's really important to have barriers or to have boundaries. Barriers, yeah, but boundaries are something that's really healthy. But what you're doing there is you're saying more about having boundaries for yourself, about what you will accept and what you won't accept. When you expect people to show up a certain way, or you reject them, that's not really a boundary. That's actually a wall. It's a judgment. It's not acceptance, that's for sure. And it doesn't mean that you have to accept the behavior. I'm not talking about accepting the behavior. I'm talking about accepting the person behind the behavior. Not judging the behavior. If it doesn't work for you, leave. You know? Don't try and change them. Don't do things that are going to make them feel criticized, because it's going to shut them down. So when I say that accepting others is the greatest gift you can give them, and also a huge gift that you give yourself, that's what this is. If you want more love, more intimacy, more connection, more love, more joy, more happiness, more, togetherness, accept the person as they are, and they will begin to trust that it's okay for them to be them, that you're not going to come out of the blue and start criticizing them or tell them that they should have done something different, or try and present the other point of view like I do at times. And I'm really trying. That's my big lesson at the moment, because the thoughts come, and my mouth and it shows in my eyes and it shows in my face, and it's like I'm waiting to say something, and it feels like I'm waiting to pounce. Stop. Say nothing. Just allow that person this moment. If they're going off about something and you don't agree with any of what they have to say, just let them talk, because I tell you what, once they got it out, they'll stop. And that's also a gift, yeah. But, sometimes if you enter into a dialogue and try and present the other point of view, you end up in an argument, and it goes on and on and on and on. Nobody wins, and everybody comes out feeling really awful. Andy's saying we must love the person, not the deeds. Walk away if it's not working. Yeah. And you know what? That's all you can do. You can only choose for yourself. You can never mold or change or try and turn the other person into what you think they should be, even when what you believe you're doing is helping them reveal their greatness. And that's a noble thing to do, yeah? Doesn't feel noble to them. And that's what this is about. This is not about your intentions or how much you want to show love or how much you want to help or how much you want to encourage. It's about wisdom. It's about acceptance first. If somebody's open to a new perspective, by all means offer it. If someone's open and they ask for help, and you can do it in a kind way that is received, and you can see how somebody's receiving it, yeah? You can see it on their face. If it's received in the way that you intend it, okay. But if you start to see resistance, you start to see this, or they start looking away, or they start rolling their eyes, or any of this stuff going on, stop. Because they're not taking it the way that you may have intended. Yeah? It's a hard one, but this is about empathy, but it's becoming aware. It's hyper aware. Not to the point where it exhausts you, but practice it. Practice acceptance. True acceptance is not about you. You're going to gain something from it, but it's that gift that you do for somebody else, the gift you give to somebody else that says, you're okay. I love you anyway, or I accept you anyway. Not everybody you want to have some kind of love relationship. Sometimes it's just a colleague at work, but it doesn't matter. It's about accepting people exactly as they are, where they are, We're all at different stages on our journey. And you know what? They don't have to be where you are. It's okay for them to be where they are. And you can learn a lot from where they are. It's easy for us to think that where we are on the path is where we want other people to come to. That because we feel joyful, or because it resonates with us, or because it feels amazing for us, or we want to grow more, doesn't mean somebody else does. Do they have to? Do they have to be on the same path as you to be acceptable? Do they have to be on the same path as you, in the same place for you to love them? I hope not. I don't think they do. And I think often it's the differences that make relationships amazing. Yeah. So the gift of acceptance for others is also a gift that you can give yourself. Because when somebody opens up with you and reveals the depths of who they are, rather than the surface stuff that they may have constructed around themselves, how amazing is that? We talk about the people closest to us can hurt us the most because we're vulnerable, but also sometimes because we don't accept them exactly as they are, and they feel judged. And when people feel judged, 9 times out of 10 they attack. You ever had that? Somebody, you say something and someone just comes at you like you've just offended them in the worst possible way, and it wasn't what you wanted to do at all. Suddenly you get this response. Have a look at the responses that you're getting. That person is responding to you, to something about you. It could be a tone of voice, it could be an expression on your face, it could be the way that you said something, it could be what you said. Sometimes, who knows? And that can be really hard. But pay attention, yeah? And if you're getting a response that's appears out of context, or is extreme in your view to what you've just said, then there's something in what you've done or how you've shown up that has either triggered something from the past in them, in which case, pay attention. Go, oh, actually, I just hit a nerve there, yeah? I pushed that person's buttons. I didn't recognize that was a button that kind of created an explosion in their head. But pay attention, because you don't have to do it again. You can go, okay, I accept that about you. I can see that's a sore point. I'm going to remember that for next time. I didn't mean to hurt you. People show us, you know. So we can learn. We can learn by watching. We can learn by paying attention. We can learn by the empathy, by beginning to get to know people, not in a way that is putting assumptions on them, but in a way that, if you think about a computer program maybe that's learning, yeah, and the information that's fed into it, it's constantly adapting and adjusting. So you feed some information here and something else comes out here. It changes the programming. Think about the Facebook algorithm. I'm talking a lot about blogs today, but I've got an awesome blog on powerandfreedom.com about how you can use your Facebook feed to change your life. And the Facebook algorithm is adjusting based on what it is that you like, comment on, you know, that you even scroll through, what you take a bit of time to actually look at. The algorithm is taking all this information into account, and then it's showing you what you've said you want to see. Whether you actually want to see it or not is another thing, but the algorithm is constantly adapting. So be like a computer algorithm. Pay attention to what the person is showing you and adjust. Don't change who you are, but adjust the way that you interact with that person so that they feel accepted as much of the time as possible. It's not impossible. It's impossible to do that every single minute. Mandy's saying people treat us the way we allow them to treat us. They do. But some people just are who they are, and there's no intention to hurt. Yeah, there are people who are cruel, but a lot of the time what we see as cruelty, abuse, is a whole different ballgame, you know. And, you know, that's not really what we're talking about today, because if that's your situation, get out. Don't stay. Don't put yourself in that situation. Don't allow somebody to treat you like that. It's not okay. And I know that's, you know, something we were talking on Tuesday, Mandy, about that. But in most relationships, there isn't deliberate abuse. There's just people with their baggage and their pain and their way of trying to manage themselves in the world, find a place where they're comfortable in their own skin. And it's very easy to trigger somebody, very easy for them to feel offended. It's very easy for us to feel offended. It's not about getting a thick skin, what even that means. It's about choosing what you will allow to affect you and what you won't. Remembering that most of the time it's not about you, even though it really, really feels like it is. There's always choice involved. Yeah, Mandy, from both sides. Yeah. Sometimes the person that we're with or we're spending time with, we see so much potential in them, and maybe we see to the heart of them, but who they choose to show up as, not the same thing. And I've had a situation in my life where I waited a really long time for somebody that I believed, they'd shown me this part of themselves at one point, and I really liked it. And in getting to know them and spending time with them, I recognized this is actually the core of who they are. But is that how they showed up in the world? Is that how they showed up in our relationship? No. So whilst I could see it, or I thought I could have been kidding myself, you know, highly likely. But there was something there. There was something kind. There was something decent. There was, you know, this lovely, sensitive person. They're walking around with their pain in front of them, and they weren't able to be that person. And so I had no choice but to walk away, because what was I going to do? Wait my whole life until they suddenly realized that, oh, this is who I am? That day may never come. And in the meantime, I'm hurting myself by staying. So sometimes that's the only choice to make. And, it, you know, sometimes it's just how it is. Hurtful. Empathy needed again. Yeah. And to remember that whilst it feels like somebody's hurting us, chances are we're hurting them too. Not deliberately. Not with consciousness, but in little things. And the little things we do and say that make them feel not enough, make them feel judged, make them feel unaccepted. And remembering, of course, that if they don't accept themselves fully, then they also can't accept that you accept them, even if you do. So this is a complex issue. This is not a simple thing. But what I wanted to really talk about today is connecting with the fact that when you accept other people, you're also helping yourself. Sometimes the idea of giving all the time is like, I'm always giving, I'm always accepting, I'm always being the loving one, and I don't get anything back. You know, I've heard that voice in my head. I think that's a common thing. And you know what's really interesting is that when you actually have a conversation with the other person, they feel exactly the same way. They think they're giving all the time and never getting anything back. Go figure. So, you know, walk the world in kindness. Walk the world in acceptance. Allow people to be who they are. You don't have to be right. They don't have to be better. Even if you think they're totally nuts, that's okay. They're allowed to be totally nuts if they want to. And remember, for them, they're not totally nuts. It's only you that thinks they are. Maybe a few other people. But, you know, seriously, it's so hard to separate ourselves from particularly close relationships, hard to separate ourselves from that other person. Everything feels personal. It feels like, yeah, okay, you might know they're having a bad day, but you know, when they attack you or they yell at you or they snap at you, that feels personal. Love them anyway. Accept them anyway. If you don't want to be in the room with them, go in another room. Go out for the evening. Take a break. Use the power of the pause to bring yourself back to you. Keep yourself centered. Keep yourself secure. Keep yourself not safe, but true and grounded and real. And this is who I choose to be in response to this. I'm not going to allow this person to trigger me. I'm not going to allow what's happening here. I don't have to take this on. There's a point where you recognize that maybe this is not for you. Maybe this is not where you want to hang out. But just because somebody isn't always kind or doesn't always make you feel loved, doesn't mean they're not love worthy or acceptance worthy. And when you do that first, what you get back and what it allows them a safe place to be. It allows them to feel there's somewhere that they can trust. Because there's not many places in this world often that it feels like we can truly be ourselves. And if you can create that for the people that you care about, then not only are you giving them the biggest gift, but you're also gaining the joy of having a real, true, loving connection, because they will feel they can open up to you. And then you get everything you want too. Yeah. So that's what this is about. The greatest gift you can ever give someone is to accept them exactly as they are, but you're also giving yourself a gift at the same time. So remember that. Next time you find yourself, somebody's reacted really strongly to you and you're like, no, I didn't mean that, and you want to get into a dialogue about it, just apologize if you feel like you need to apologize. You might not have meant to do it, but it hurt them, or they felt hurt. And that's the same thing for them, yeah? So, yes, as Mandy says, very, very complex, but as a little bit of an overview today, just a few things that sometimes the things that we come with intention, we want to help, we want to help someone grow, we want to help them recognize something, isn't always received that way. Always take the path of acceptance. And if you can start doing that for the people that you care about, as well as doing it for yourself, you will begin to get more of that connection, more of that joy, more of that happiness, more of the intimacy and love that actually we all crave. So thank you so much for being here with me today. It's a privilege to be able to come and have a chat with you, and I thank you so much for showing up and taking the time to listen.